See, I don't believe you. I think you allowed your political beliefs to cloud your judgment. And I think you said a few years ago what you said about Brett Kavanaugh, and I think you believe it.
Guys, imagine a politician who walks into a Senate hearing and destroys everyone with pure logic, savage humor, and zero filter. That man is Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, the sharpest tongue in Washington right now. While most politicians read boring scripts and play it safe, Kennedy looks straight into the camera and says what millions of Americans are actually thinking. He's roasted the Biden administration on inflation. Nothing built, nothing back, nothing better. He's exposed fake poverty numbers. You're not counting food stamps, housing, or Medicaid, you're cooking the books. He's asked the million-dollar question in gender debates. How many genders are there? And when they said infinite, he hit back with cold, hard reality. From open borders to woke nonsense, from government waste to common sense, Kennedy doesn't just speak, he slaps facts across the table with a southern drawl and a smile that makes liberals sweat. These clips are blowing up because people are exhausted of fake scripted politics. They crave honesty, they crave humor, and they crave someone who's not afraid to call out the bullshit. So buckle up, because in the next few minutes, you're going to see why Senator John Kennedy has become one of the most loved and feared voices in America today. Stick till the end. You're not going to believe some of these moments.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses here today. Ms. Robinson, I want to follow up by trying to understand your answer to one of Senator Cruz's questions. And this is really a question, not a suggestion. Do I understand your position to be that there are two sexes, but there can be more than two genders?
I wouldn't even say two, and we've got Dr. Lopez here as well, but there's also the definition of intersex. I think that often in these conversations we're conflating sex and gender, and I do want to affirm here that trans women are women. That is their gender.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand. Do you make a distinction between sex and gender?
Yes, sir.
Okay, explain that. Do you think there are more than two sexes?
I believe that there's a definition for intersex as well that I want to acknowledge. But sex is assigned at birth.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm thoroughly confused. So you're born, I'm talking about biology, male, female, and what else?
I believe that intersex is also acknowledged, but again, I'm not a doctor here. What I can
say, what
does
intersex mean?
Is that there's a difference between sex and gender, and I think in these conversations we're conflating the two.
Well, but I want to start with sex. Okay, there's male, there's female. When a baby's born, before the baby has had time to even have a sense of self, there's male, female, and intersex. There's a third.
I believe that is true, but I would defer to Dr. Lopez as I'm not a physician.
Okay. And how many genders are there?
I think the gender is expansive, and the definitions are always growing. Today I can tell you, I talk to young people that talk about non-binary as...
More than five?
I think the gender is not a binary, is what I'm trying to say.
But are there more than five genders? I'm just trying to understand. Are there more than five genders?
Well, I think that there was a time where women wearing pants didn't feel like it was appropriate for their gender, and yet I'm wearing pants today. I think that there are ways that we express our gender that are expansive.
Are there more than five?
I wouldn't subject myself to naming how many genders there are, but what I can say is that gender is a reflection.
Number?
Excuse me?
There's an infinite number of genders?
I think depending on your culture, there are a lot of different genders that exist. And I can also say that it's a term that's evolving. If you look at young people today, they really don't lean into the binary of only woman and man. So I think that it's incumbent upon us not to legislate on this, but create space for them to explore what their identities are, what their gender identities are.
Let's get back to athletics. I think I understand what you're saying. There are three sexes. male, female, and intersex.
I believe that to be true, but again, I'm not a physician.
And
so
there are an infinite number of genders because gender is a mental state.
Gender is about expression, and I think that there are a variety of ways that you can express your gender.
Okay, so there's infinite number. All right, let's go back to the biology. Male, female, boy, girl. Okay, biologically, do males have an advantage over females biologically in sports?
Again, I'm not a physician, and I can't speak to that.
What's your real world experience?
It depends. I mean, there are some people who are born male that I'm faster than if I were to sprint against them, and some that I'm not. Some males that are taller than some women, and some that are shorter.
You don't believe that a biological male has a physical advantage in sports over a biological female?
Not as a definitive statement.
Give me an example. Well, no, I don't think. How many female members of the NBA do you see?
Well, I can say that, there's been this news article about men that think that they could beat Serena Williams in tennis, right? That they think that they could actually score a point on her. And it's just not the case. She is stronger than that.
What's your experience, Ben? Male, female?
Both Serena and Venus lost to the 203rd ranked male tennis player, which they're phenoms for women. My experience, my husband, he swam at University of Kentucky as well. In terms of accolades and in terms of national ranking, I was a much better swimmer than him. He could kick my butt any day of the week without trying.
Okay. I just think, Ms. Robinson, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I think you lose a lot of credibility when you don't concede that a biological male has physical advantages over a biological female. I mean, I just think that's a proven fact, and you really hurt your credibility. I understand you want the world to be a better place. I do too, and I don't think people ought to be discriminated against because of an immutable characteristic. I don't. And I think that I think everybody ought to be free to be themselves. And what you do in your bedroom or what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult is nobody's business. But if what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult, if I decide I want to tell somebody's child about it, then other people have rights too. And I think parents have rights. And I think biological females have rights to be able to compete fairly in sport, in sports. So I really think you hurt your credibility when you refuse to acknowledge that biological males have an advantage over biological females. It kind of makes me wonder about all your testimony. Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
Kennedy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that there is not a definitive advantage in all cases. Sir, I don't know if you believe that you could beat Serena Williams in tennis, but I probably think that that's not the case. There are not all cases where all men are physically superior to all women. And at the end of the day, in this conversation, we're not talking about that. We're talking about trans women who are, in fact, women, who deserve to play in a gender that matches their sports, who deserve all the benefits that Ms. Gaines is talking about. And as a cisgender black woman, I can say definitively that my womanhood is not threatened by a transgender person asserting hers as well.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank all of the persons who are testifying today. For Ms. Robinson, do you know what...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for having to miss the testimony of some of you, and I appreciate you coming today. Professor Franks, let me ask you, I listened to your and Ms. Hemingway's testimony and Professor Turley, so I got part of it. As I understand it, your position, Professor Franks, is that I think you used the word myth. It is a myth that the Biden administration used government to compel speech, private speech, but that the Trump administration is doing that. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you're allowing your personal political beliefs to affect your objectivity here?
No, I do not. What is guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship industrial complex.
I got that part.
No,
I got that part. No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said, I'm going to quote your words, "Taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy," end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, "When the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, "By simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court," referring to the current United States Supreme Court, "has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well," close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You're trying to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance
Well,
of this question is.
let me show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m., quote, "The majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this
Did you
hearing.
say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but
Yeah,
what is
you
the
said it.
relevance of
Here
that
it
to
is,
this
big as
hearing?
Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me
doctrine.
like your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, "There's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read that correctly? That's
Is there
my
a question that is relevant to this hearing?
Did I read that correctly? Do you really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president
Did you
and other
say
state
that?
officials for punishing people for
Did
their
you honestly say that, Professor?
I
And you
believe
expect us,
that the First
as a
Amendment,
Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
I believe that you should take
You
the First
heard of
Amendment
curb your
seriously, sir.
enthusiasm? Here's my saying, curb my nausea.
I
Thank you.
believe that you should
The
take the First
time has
Amendment
expired. Thank
seriously.
you. Senator Durbin. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've listened with great interest today, and here's what I hear you saying. The four folks to my left, I hear you saying that digital assets are different. Digital assets hold great promise. Digital assets need special rules. I agree with that. The obvious question is, what should those rules be, and to what extent should we allow you to draft them? I've also heard some of you say that digital assets represent the next generation of the internet. Well, we let the current generation of the internet draft their own rules, and frankly, it looks like what we got as a result looks like somebody knocked over a urine sample. Congress can't even agree on basic legislation dealing with privacy on the internet. How the hell are we going to tackle this? But I hear what you're saying. I hear Mr. Painter, as usual, if you follow him on social media, you know, all politicians are crooks. Very helpful. I want to direct most of my questions to Professor Massad. Is that how you say your name?
Massad.
Mr. Massad. I'm really worried we're going to get this wrong. We don't know, we in Congress and our staffs don't know as much as the professionals in digital assets know. And I don't see how we can possibly catch up. Tell me more about your idea of having the SEC. Well, first, I don't want to run out of time here, but why is the digital assets industry so scared of being regulated by the SEC?
Well, I think we need to step back, Senator.
Briefly, please.
They don't want everything treated as a security because they don't want that entire framework to apply, but that's also because the SEC did fail to try to customize its rules to adapt for this technology, and it should do that. And you've got leadership at the agencies now who are working on those things.
You're suggesting that we turn to two of our agencies, one of which is the SEC, and say, you have expertise. Before we take a crack at a bill, you come up with a bill with rules, with regulations. Tell us how to do this. Because I hear you saying in some cases digital assets are commodities. In some cases, they're securities.
Congress needs to fill the gap, which is if it's not a security, who's going to create a regulatory framework for it? So you do need to fill that. But these questions about exactly which is when is it a security, when is it not a security, how do we customize the rules, what should we do about DeFi, a lot of that should really be left to the agencies. You could establish some principles, but I wouldn't write detailed rules.
Have you looked, Professor, at Congressman Hill's legislation?
I have in detail.
What do you think?
I think it's got a lot of problems. I think it's 236 pages of regulatory arbitrage opportunities for creative lawyers, and I used to be one that did that kind of stuff.
Made a lot of money, did you?
I did, but...
Yeah. Mr. Painter, do you think Senator Gillibrand is a crook?
No, and I do not think all politicians are crooks.
And why did you call her a crook?
I did not call her a crook. Now, Ms. Senator, you need to focus on this bill.
Right,
you're doing this again. You did it the last hearing. You need to read the bill.
Role in stablecoin regulation, $217,000 in crypto donations. You tweeted that.
Yes, I do.
And then you said, the crypto industry is buying Congress and the White House. This won't end well. Why do you think the crypto industry is buying Senator Gillibrand?
I said, look at the campaign contributions from this industry.
Do you think they've bought her?
No, I said, look at the campaign
You
contributions.
said they bought her. Do you think they bought her?
Senator, you need to focus on this bill instead of trying to distort my Twitter.
You called one of my
you were
colleagues
quoting
a crook,
what a Marxist in Chicago said
and
about
what
me.
evidence do you
make
have
no
that she's
sense.
a crook?
I said there is massive amount of campaign contributions coming into this Congress from the crypto industry.
Do you want to apologize
to
Senator Gillibrand?
I do not want you to have to apologize for passing legislation
Do you want to
that
apologize
destroys
to
our
Senator
economy.
Gillibrand for calling
you
her
are
correct?
distorting
Crook.
what I said, just like you did in the last hearing. You're wasting everybody's time, Senator.
You're a whack job.
Senator, you are
a
wasting.
Well, I think we are.
next
I
level
think we.
whack job.
I think we
Is
are.
this
at
middle
time.
school, Senator?
Senators and witness. Thank you both.
I think
for
you
your
should apologize, Senator.
I think,
Gillibrand.
Senator, you're wasting our time. This is not middle school.
Thank you for your participation. I will say that Senator Smith is next. The floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, not so long ago, I think.
What questions do you have that the U.S. is seizing tankers in the North Atlantic?
Look, I don't know what they're going to tell us today, but you don't have to be Einstein's cousin to figure out that at this juncture, two things are true. Number one, to invade Greenland would be weapons grade stupid. And Donald Trump is not weapons grade stupid. Neither is Marco Rubio. Number two, you can pretty this up all you want to. But unless you were playing Frisbee in the quad during History 101, you know that the future of Venezuela, one way or the other, is going to be determined by the military. Every time Venezuela has embraced democracy, it has been because the military has gone along. Every time Venezuela has rejected democracy, it has happened because of the military. In this case, let me finish, man, if you don't mind, unless you want to come up here. This is not true in all cases, but in this respect, Mao was right. Power grows from the barrel of a gun, and the military here is key. And that's all there is to it. I got to go. Ask for an additional 15 minutes to make my remarks.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to spend a few minutes talking about a couple of different topics. First, I want to try to explain to the American people what's going on around here. Some people are going to try to tell you, American people, that what we're engaged in is a rational discussion of how to use scarce taxpayer dollars to fund the Department of Homeland Security. Now, that's not true. Wish it were. The Department of Homeland Security is about to shut down. We don't know how to get it back open. What does that mean? It means ICE will be shut down. We've got some ideas about how to keep it operating. They have enough money. It means TSA will be shut down. They're not going to be paid. That'll impact airport travel. Coast Guard be shut down. FEMA, God help us if we have a natural disaster, it'll be shut down. What's about to happen is top of the list, king of the hill, number one, stupid. And it's happening just not because of policy. It's happening because of raw gut politics. If you could see what I see, your gag reflex would be permanently triggered. Here's what's going on. The Karen wing of the Democratic Party is in control of the Democratic Party. And the Karen wing of the Democratic Party, not all Democrats, but there's clearly a Karen wing. Sometimes I call them the loon wing. They have gone to the Minority Leader Jeffries and my friend Senator Schumer and said, don't you vote for that Homeland Security bill. Why? Because the Karen wing of the Democratic Party wants to defund ICE. Now, we've seen this vampire movie before. The Karen wing of the Democratic Party also wanted us to defund the police. How'd that work out for us? The criminals are still laughing. Now they want to defund ICE. And Senator Schumer and Minority Leader Jeffries, two good men, they've made a bunch of unreasonable demands that no person with a brain above a single-cell organism would vote for. It would put handcuffs on ICE. That's just a fact. And they know that. I'm not going to vote for them. I'm sure not going to vote for them with a gun to my head. Now, but I'll tell you the reality. We could go to Senator Schumer and the Minority Leader in the House and say, okay, we accept every one of your conditions. The Democrats still are not going to vote to keep DHS open. I mean, I don't blame Senator Schumer for trying, but he's kind of wandering around here like one of those Roombas. He looks like a man who's lost his luggage at the airport. I mean, he's making these demands, and if we accepted them, we're not, but if we did, he couldn't deliver the votes. Because nobody on my side of the aisle wants to defund ICE. And that's what this is all about. And some of my colleagues are trying to pretty it up. Lots of play acting. They might be late, a little late for getting their name in for the Academy Awards, but maybe next year. They're trying to muddy the water, make it look deep. Like we're having this discussion about efficiencies at the Department of Homeland Security. Nope, very simple. The Karen wing of the Democratic Party has told every single Democrat, if you don't vote to shut down DHS, if you do vote to fund ICE, we will punish you politically the rest of your natural lives. That's why we're about to have a shutdown. Now, this stuff isn't complicated. Here's what I think most Americans believe. Illegal immigration, Mr. President, is illegal. Duh. If none of us are above the law, I believe that. I bet you believe that. If no one is above the law, how come people in our country illegally are above the law? Immigration statutes are not some second-tier laws that you can violate without consequence. It's the law. If you don't like it, change it. I believe in enforcing our immigration laws. Now, how you enforce them matters. By God, you better believe it matters. Those laws have got to be enforced in conformity with equal protection and with due process and in accordance with standards set forth by the United States Supreme Court. I think it was 1968 in a very famous case called Terry v. Ohio. Cop can't stop you unless that cop has reasonable suspicion, not probable cause, reasonable suspicion to believe that you have committed, are committing, or is about to commit a crime. It's not subjective. It's an objective standard. And our cops, including but not limited to our ICE officers, have to follow it. Now, you can protest. That's fine. That's your right to protest. You don't have the right to protest violently. You don't have the right to harass an ICE officer. You don't have a right to spit in his face. You don't have a right to threaten his children. You don't have a right to get his home address and go to his house and try to harass his family. You don't have the right to block the street so the ICE officer can't get through. You don't have the right to kick out a cop's tail light. You don't have the right to go burn Christmas trees. You have the right to protest, but not violently. Because you know what? Two reasons. Violence undermines the morality that you say your movement is built upon. Dr. King knew that. That's why he wanted nonviolent protest. Gandhi knew that. President Mandela knew that in South Africa. Violence undermines the morality that you say your movement is built on. Now, there's a second reason that you can't protest violently. It's against the law. And it's bone deep, down to the marrow, stupid. If you act like a butthead with a cop or an ICE officer, it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. Here's a little tip. It's free. Cops will leave you alone unless you do illegal stuff. And that's what this debate is all about. I hope we get it worked out. I don't want to see flights stop. I don't want to see FEMA not be able to respond. I don't want to see the Coast Guard have to shut down. But the Karen wing of the Democratic Party is the cause of this. And they're going to have to accept the fact that the law is the law, or they're going to have to get the votes to change it. Because the American people see immigration like they see the front door of their home. Most Americans lock their front door at night. Why do they do that? They don't lock their front door at night because they hate everybody on the outside. They lock the front door at night because they love the people on the inside. And they want to know who's coming into and out of their home. And that's the way the American people see our borders. Legal immigration, great. We admit more people, more of our world's neighbors, to come to America and become part of us every year than any other country. And the whole world knows it. That's why everybody wants to come here. When's the last time you heard of somebody trying to sneak into China? I want to come here. It's called legal immigration. But you can't jump the line. You got to fill out the forms and be properly vetted. You can't just come in. Now, President Biden didn't follow the law. That's why we're in this mess today. We don't know how many people he let in. I'm not saying they were all bad people. I don't know them. That's the point. We don't know who they are. I don't even know the number. Anywhere from 8 million to 15 million. Some of them were bad people. But we don't have the slightest idea who they are. And we don't know where they are. And that's why we have the rule of law. And that's why we have ICE. And that's what's going on. I think we're all aware, Mr. President, that parts of our world are on fire. The world is on fire in Ukraine and Eastern Europe. The world is on fire in the Middle East. I wouldn't describe the world as being on fire in the Indo-Pacific, but there's certainly embers, and they are smoldering. And I think it's clear to most Americans, Mr. President, that President Xi in China, President Putin in Russia, and the Ayatollah in Iran are working together. And their objective is to have Russia dominate Central and Eastern Europe, to have the Ayatollah in Iran dominate the Middle East. The Ayatollah, of course, has funded and supports Hamas. There's no cause in the world, none, that can justify what Hamas did to the innocent people of Israel. The people of Hamas are so evil they will kill you and drink your blood out of a boot. And President Xi and President Putin and the Ayatollah in Iran are just fine with that. And the third objective of China, Russia, and Iran is to allow China to dominate the Indo-Pacific and be free to make moves in sub-Saharan Africa and in South America. Parts of the world are on fire. America is about to find out what it is made of, because the world I just described is not a world that's safe for America. But as we meet these challenges, Mr. President, and by God, we will meet them. We will meet them. While we're doing that, Mr. President, I don't want us to forget about our homeland. We've got a lot of problems domestically, and I don't want us to lose sight of them. I think about them every day. I know you do too, Mr. President. We still have millions of Americans who are too poor to be sick, despite the fact that we have the best quality of health care in America in all of human history. Notice I didn't say that we have the best way of delivering that health care, but we have the best quality of health care in all of human history. But we've got people in this country, many of them are middle class, who are too poor to be sick. Since the Affordable Care Act passed, we were told it was going to make our lives better. It was going to make health insurance more accessible and cheaper. Since the Affordable Health Care Act is passed, health insurance premiums have tripled. We also know domestically, Mr. President, that our border is an open, bleeding wound. It is an open, bleeding wound. And it is within the power of this Congress to fix that. But none of those domestic problems that I just described, and I could continue with others, as I know you could too, Mr. President, is hurting the American people as much as President Biden's inflation. Not a single one. President Biden's inflation is gutting the American people like a fish. It is a cancer on the American dream. In my state alone, in Louisiana, we're not a wealthy state. My people are pretty middle class. They get up every day, they go to work, they obey the law. They try to do the right thing by their kids, try to save a little for retirement. The median household income for a family of four in my state's $55,000 a year. A lot of states are above us, some are below us. President Biden's inflation, which is man-made, and that man's name is Joe Biden, is costing my people, the average Louisiana family, $806, not a year, a month. $806 a month. That's $9,700 a year. Now imagine if you were making $55,000 a year and you've got to come out of pocket with an extra $9,700 a year. You blow through your savings. You max out your credit card. You borrow from your children's college education plan. You borrow from relatives. And then what do you do? Now, I know what some of my colleagues are thinking, but Kennedy, we're doing better on inflation. And we are. And I am so thankful. A year ago, inflation in this country was 8.2%. Today it's 3.7%, and I am so happy. And I hope it continues to go down. But it is important for us to remember what that means. A reduction of inflation from 8.2% to 3.7%, which is still, of course, too high, just means that inflation is rising less rapidly. We still have inflation. Prices are still high. They're just not going, and they continue to go up. They're just not going up as quickly as they were. Now, that's a good thing, but it doesn't solve the problem. That's what we call disinflation. When inflation is rising and we stop it from rising so quickly, that's called disinflation. But that's not what most Americans care about, though that's important to them. What they care about is the prices going down, and that's de-inflation. And we do not have de-inflation. The point I'm trying to make is we're stuck with these high prices. If they get inflation down to zero, those high prices are not going down. They're going to remain the same, Mr. President. They're just not going to rise as quickly. We are stuck. The American people are stuck with these high prices because of the Biden administration. Now, I could cite you, Mr. President, all the sterile statistics you would like. But I want to try to describe in specific terms what it's like for my people to go to the grocery store. This is an exaggeration, but not by much. To have to think about, well, do I have to sell blood plasma today in order to go to the grocery store? Do I have to draw down on the second mortgage on my home in order to go to the grocery store? Since President Biden has been in office, consumer goods in the United States of America are up 17%. Electricity is up 25%. Eggs are up 29%. They're not going down, folks. Even if inflation goes to zero, those prices aren't going down. Potato chips up 30%, bread up 28%, coffee 30%, rice 26%, flour's up 28%, milk 18%. A half gallon of ice cream, 21%. Chicken, 20%. When you look at larger categories, this is what's happening to the American people. Since President Biden took office, all goods and many services in the wealthiest country in all of human history are up 17%. Food's up 20%. Housing is up 17%, clothing is up 12%, used cars and trucks are up 25%, new cars and trucks are up 20%, and mortgage rates are up 174%. 174%. Now, some may be saying, well, but wages are going up too. Thank goodness. In some cases, wages have gone up. But the average wage of the average American has gone down after inflation. You don't look, the appropriate way to look at wage increases is not to look at the raw or the aggregate increase. It's looking at the increase after inflation. And if you take all of the average wage increases in the United States of America, and you look at the average inflation in the United States of America, workers have actually lost ground. Workers today, in November of 2023, are actually making less per hour after inflation than they were of February 2021. So don't let anybody tell you that wages have made up for this. They haven't kept up with inflation. And don't let anybody tell you, Mr. President, that we're winning the war on high prices. We are getting inflation down. No thanks to the Biden administration and, quite frankly, the United States Congress. That's thanks to the Federal Reserve. They have tightened interest rates, which has hurt a lot of people. But they have gotten inflation down. They've had to do it with one arm tied behind their backs, because the other way you attack inflation, and the only way we've ever successfully gotten down, is to have Congress do its part and reduce the rate of growth of spending and debt accumulation. But we haven't done that. We haven't done that. In fact, since 2019, the population of the United States of America is up 1.9%. Our country's grown 2% since 2019. You know how much our budget has grown? 55%. This inflation is man-made, and the man's name is Joe Biden. And we need to address it. So as we fight a hostile world, which day by day is becoming less safe for the American people, I don't want us to lose sight, Mr. President, of another problem, an equally important problem, that is stealing the American dream, and is called President Biden's inflation. Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum. Mr. President, most of my people in Louisiana, I think, are probably much like your people in Maine. Most of our people, they just get up every day, they go to work, they obey the law, they pay their taxes, they try to do the right thing by their kids, try to teach their kids morals, and they try to save a little money for retirement as they enjoy living in what they believe is the greatest country in all of human history. But many of my people, Mr. President, are struggling. President Biden took office on January 20th of last year. So, what are we? We're in day 490 of Build Back Better. From where many of my people sit, nothing's been built, and nothing is back, and nothing is better. There's not a more appropriate example of that than the cost of living, inflation. When President Biden took office, the cost of gasoline in my state was $2 a gallon. It's between $4.15 and $4.25 right now. And it's not just gasoline, Mr. President. I mean, I don't need to tell you. A dozen eggs now cost $2.52. Ground beef is $5.41. A pound of chicken is $4.10. The price of oil, the price of gasoline affects so much in terms of our economy. I mean, it impacts most of our food and our clothes and our plastics. The things we use every day are delivered by air, by van, by tanker, all of which use gasoline. Pharmaceuticals are affected by the price of oil. I don't think it's any secret that the Biden administration is trying to disrupt the production of oil in America. I think that's just a fact. We see it in the president canceling leases on federal lands in the Gulf of Mexico, in Anwar. We see it from the difficult regulatory environment for oil and gas producers. The president's just promulgated new rules for the National Environmental Protection Act. If those new rules come to fruition, it'll be impossible to open a new pipeline in America. And I think we have to be honest about that. Now, to be fair, the Biden administration is trying to disrupt the production of oil and gas, especially oil, for environmental reasons, of which we're both aware. But instead, the Biden administration, this seems curious to me, wants us to buy oil from foreign countries. And those foreign countries deliver their oil in tankers that use 2,000 gallons of fuel an hour and emit 8 tons of carbon dioxide into the environment per hour. The irony of this is rich. Inflation and oil. Once again, I think so much of our inflation in all the products that we need to maintain our standard of living today starts with the price of oil. Now, President Biden has said he has no control over the price of oil and therefore the price of gasoline. But, Mr. President, you can't have regulatory control over the drilling, the transporting, the storage, the refining, the trading, and the taxation of oil, as the president does, and say you have no control over the price of the commodity. I mean, that's just not true. The president, here's what most people in my state see, Mr. President. The president, in March of last year, sent every American a $1,400 stimulus check. And they were grateful. But then the Biden administration, for its next trick, crashed their 401ks, increased their food bills by as much, for some, as much as $3,000 a year, increased their rent for many as much as $2,000 a year, and increased their gas bills for as much as $1,000 a year. And they don't see that as a good trade, Mr. President. And it's all derived from President Biden's energy policy, which is here's his energy policy: wind, solar, and wishful thinking. It's just not realistic. And among other things, it is hurting our country. It's hurting my people in Louisiana desperately. because of the rise in gasoline prices. I was very disappointed to see this week that the president has changed his approach to inflation and the price of gasoline. He has said we are now in a transition period, and he said it as if that were a positive thing. He said we're in a transition, and when we get through this transition, we're going to be stronger than ever because we're not going to have to rely on fossil fuels. And I'm thinking, you know, I respect the president, but honestly, what planet did he parachute in from? I had just finished reading J.P. Morgan's energy report. And J.P. Morgan, looking out until 2030, not 2050, 2030, just 8 years from now, said in 2030, at the rate we're going, the demand for energy in America will be 20% greater than the supply. You know what that's going to do to the price, Mr. President. The J.P. Morgan Energy Report said that at a minimum in 2030, 8 years from now, the demand for oil is going to be 10% higher in America, and the demand for natural gas is going to be 18% higher. You know what that's going to do to prices? And the president is talking about this glorious transition, as if this is going to last forever. I don't know about the good people of Maine, but the good people in Louisiana, they just can't afford it. And my people deserve better. Now, what's the answer? Here's my opinion. We got to stop spending. The Federal Reserve has got to be given a chance to do its job. The United States Congress has a budget that we have set for the United States of America. We need to live within our budget. Except for defense spending, we need to freeze spending. We need to freeze it and give the Federal Reserve a chance to get this inflation under control. Thank you, Mr. President. My people deserve better. People of America deserve better. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Friends, John Kennedy is more than just a senator. He's the voice of common sense in a world full of confusion and agendas. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop a comment. What's your favorite John Kennedy moment? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notification so you never miss these hard-hitting political breakdowns. In today's time, we need more leaders who speak the truth without fear. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. See you in the next video. Stay truthful and take care.